ngilapha nje ntombi khona lapho ngiphuma khona.
Hello, you can hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mic check.
Good.
Mic check.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you are all keeping well. Looking forward to this conversation. And today we want to talk about financial inclusion, what's happening in the space, the trends in that space, what to look forward to in the coming year, and some exciting things happening. And I'm joined by my esteemed colleagues here. So pretty experienced people in that particular space. So my first panelist is Michael Lawal in the middle. So Michael is the head of growth in Africa at Aufort, which is a company that's developing a solution to allow anyone to use gold as a payment method. So think of it as a bank card or Apple Pay, but they work with other institutions. Essentially, they're a B2B infrastructure payment service, but using gold to facilitate the payments. My second panel is a good friend of mine called Boriss. Boriss works with a leading fintech company called Admirals, which allows people to invest in global asset classes from gold, FX, equities, ETFs across Europe. And think of it as an easier way to start investing. He has experience in business development and is currently engaged in directing efforts towards advancing the growth and expansion of Admirals within Africa. My third panelist is Hesbon Kiptoo. He leads a delivery of financial services at mPesa. Of course, we all know mPesa. And today's discussion is essentially we're going to discuss around the state of financial inclusion and how do we bridge that particular gap. Maybe I'll start with Michael first around, Autofort's innovative solution that involves using gold as a payment method. I mean, this is quite unique, because given there are a number of things that you have to, to navigate, especially, across emerging markets like Africa and other frontier markets. To start us off, what sort of challenges do you anticipate in adoption across some of these diverse markets like Africa?
Absolutely. I think the first is to actually ask yourself what is financial inclusion, by understanding what is financial exclusion. And then how does gold and what we've built at Aufort becomes a solution that we strongly believe can enable Africans and its government to actually bring the unbanked to be banked. Because someone can have a bank account and still be financially excluded. That is possible. When someone has a possibility to have financially connected to the rest of the world, then to me, that's financial inclusion. But if I cannot still take my Kenyan shillings out of Kenya and take that Kenyan shillings into London without necessarily converting via US dollars, then technically I'm still financially excluded. Because having access to a globe to be connected economically to the rest of the financial economy, that's what makes me financially included. So I love to set that stage as someone who is passionate about financial inclusion. What we're building at Aufort, I strongly believe we're starting a new conversation. Because gold is not something new in Africa. We know a very popular story of Gaddafi. I'm not going to go into that today to excuse politics. But beyond that, Africans are not new to gold. Various African countries had gold reserve or have dictated that they have gold as a raw resources. We have already various governments, including Zimbabwe. We already have Tanzania Central Bank wanting to buy gold directly from the miners to be able to hedge against their currency becoming useless, right? And so to us, what we build at Aufort is how can we use a new asset class as a means of money where people seamlessly can log into a platform as we speak today, and within 1 minute, you can send gold anywhere in the world. without necessarily asking you to give us all the details of your mom and dad when they were born. But that doesn't mean that we've not done or created our platform in a way that is secured as well. It is secured, and it's done in a way where every single person, all I need is your email address or your phone number. I get your email address, and I can send you gold, and you can withdraw that gold thanks to mPesa. You can withdraw that gold in Kenya today into your mPesa. You can use your mPesa to also buy gold as well. And so I think financial inclusion, what we've built, is not looking at it from you've done this and it's useless, and our build is the most important. No. It's holistically looking at the whole entire ecosystem and understanding how do we leverage, how do we collaborate, how do we enable people to move money and assets across the world as fast as possible.
Thanks for those insights, Michael. Over to you, Boriss. From your experience as a business development expert, and scaling fintech products across emerging markets. And when you look at Africa, we have very few sort of fintech hubs. Think of Kenya, South Africa, and West Africa and Nigeria. And now you are in the process of expanding Admirals into the East African market. From your view, how do you believe fintech hubs, especially the key ones that I've mentioned, can play an important role in fostering financial inclusion? And what sort of specific strategies are you guys employing to navigate this particular environment?
Yeah, I believe, we've been growing fast, entering new markets. So now it's the moment where we have to work closely on every market. So, and we start, and I see that the main point is with this financial inclusion is financial literacy and education, and also with partnerships and collaboration. So, and I see that it's not only for us as Admirals to work on with, because we've seen it in our home country, that it's like a collaborative project for the whole fintech and telecom sector, as well as education. So we should mainly be concerned of educational side to grow the financial literacy all around the country. And then as we know, the median age here is so much younger than in old Europe. So there is a lot to do. And then that's why we are partnering with different stakeholders. Even this event for us is to work towards that goal for this financial inclusion, for the young generation to have a belief in better tomorrow, in their own self. Yeah, thank you.
Good. Thanks. Hesbon, from what mPesa has been able to do, and you think of fintech in Africa, mPesa comes top of mind, and you are at the point of implementing some of these changes in terms of what users apply and use on a daily sort of basis. And mPesa has evolved, from the early years when it was just an airtime buying sort of product to sending money, and a lot of other solutions have been built on top. What sort of insights can you share to people in the fintech community here on how mPesa and some of the lessons that other fintech players can learn from your success in promoting financial inclusion?
So thank you, Eric. So mPesa is part of the Safaricom, of course, family. So how we started financial inclusion, it didn't start even before. It started before we did the mobile money business. We were actually telco, just making calls, sending SMS, buying airtime. So we ask ourselves, how do we make our commodities accessible to everyone? So that's when we changed from per minute billing to per second billing. And that's how actually we overtook Kencell at that time, which is now Airtel. So in 2007, so we started with just transfer, send money, withdraw, deposit. But we've continuously evolved. I think in 2007, the financial inclusion in Kenya was around 30%. But today, I think it's over 80%, I think around 83% to date, which is among, of course, the top, let me say top 5 in Africa. And the way, of course, we've done that, of course, is number one, we've understood the local context and we actually provided solutions for the local context. And part of continuous improvement, we started small, so you have to start small, and then aim or focus for the impact. So when we moved from just sending money, so we now empowered businesses to receive payments from customers, and of course, customers make payments to them. So beyond that, again, as part of financial inclusion is, you want somebody to make a payment, but they don't have the money. So what do? So we provided now credit facilities, so micro loans. So we don't do this alone, but of course we work with partners. So a lot of partnerships with the banks and other institutions that are licensed to provide. So even beyond, of course, lending, now that people have money, so there is the next step. Someone wants to save. They want to save for the future. So we have now part of this capabilities to enable our customers to save. Even beyond saving, so we also have insurance propositions. So basically, we've turned our ecosystem from one side to actually three-sided ecosystem. You have the merchant, you have the customer, and you also have developers. So developers also within the ecosystem that can power their business or empower others, and actually opening up mPesa to the rest of the world. So you can send money to any part of the world. You can also send money into Kenya. Another learning, of course, is to be agile. So you need to adapt. So you can't just stay where you are. So you have to respond to the market conditions. That's number one. Number two, also, you need to listen to the customer needs. So we keep on providing more and more those capabilities to our customers. So we can derive value for ourselves, derive value for the customers, and in the end, of course, is building the ecosystem in terms of the financial inclusion.
Yeah, thanks, Hesbon, for that. I mean, while speaking of building the ecosystem, you know, when you build such products, there's an element of trust, especially, you know, among users, your customers, and that evolves with time. From where you sit, how has trust been important for mPesa to achieve the kind of scale that it has achieved?
Yeah. So trust is very key. So you have to build trust from the onset. And when you look at mPesa, of course, how it started, I know most people didn't believe that I can receive an SMS and I can believe that that SMS is actually money, yet it's not money. So I think it's actually that trust that people felt that, you know, when I have an SMS, that is actually value, it's an e-value. And they are sure, number one, that their money is secure, and number two is they can pay anyone. So that trust needs to be there, and of course, that's many dimensions. So number one, of course, and I'm somebody from technology, I ensure, of course, the platform that you are building, of course, they have to be secure. That's number one. Number two, they have to be reliable. So every now and then, we evolve our platform to support more and more transactions. Like now, to date, we do 4,000 transactions per second. So imagine, even in 1 second, the system goes down. That's 4,000 customers. If you are doing 10 minutes, 4 million. So the system stability and uptime is very, very, very critical. And that's why, for example, I'd be so okay to leave my wallet at home. As long as I have my phone, I'm sure number one is there's acceptance. So anyone, whether it's a merchant or a fellow customer, will accept my payment. And secondly, of course, is it will always work. So I think those elements are really, really important in terms of that trust. And then lastly, of course, in terms of the transparency, that if there's something wrong, of course, keep your customer updated. So for example, we're doing platform upgrades. we always notify a customer that we'll be down for 10 minutes. We've come from, we are doing an hour, but now we just even do 5 minutes or less. And also even, for example, pricing or even the product information, you need to disclose everything to the customer so that they know that what they are getting into. And of course, that trust is built over time. So if you destroy now, of course, it will affect in the future. So you have to ensure that consistently you build that trust and you speak, walk the talk basically, yeah.
Good. Yeah, thanks, Hesbon, for for the insights. Over to you, Boriss. Just carrying on towards what Hesbon has mentioned. When speaking of financial literacy, there's the role of education, especially to help people overcome barriers to fintech adoption. From where you sit, what sort of steps are you guys taking to ensure that more Africans are not only aware but also comfortable using new products, that are new, like investing into global asset classes?
Yeah. Like for us, the financial literacy, and it's not only like one-man show, that I believe it's a collaborative effort for this effective financial inclusion. So, and that's why I see that we need partnerships between fintech and even the educational institutions, right? Either it's schools, kindergartens, universities, and so on. For sure, we need the governmental involvement on the Ministry of Education, Ministry of Finance, and all the regulative bodies. Probably these community-based workshops. I know that everything, I believe, that's it's still all ongoing process. That different counterparties are working on it every day, and but we've seen that it will, for this capacity building, it just takes time, and I guess also this inclusive design. That it means that ensuring that these technological solutions are accessible to people with varying levels of literacy and different languages. So basically, I believe like all the counterparties are working towards it. It will just take time and just keep the consistency.
Good. Thanks. Over to you, Michael. Your product involves working closely with licensed, say, third-party providers or institutions. Think of banks, e-commerce players, and PSPs, that kind of thing. How important is it, for regulation to enable uptake of products, fintech products, and for adoption of financial inclusion and to increase ability for people to adopt such solutions?
Absolutely. I think the most important thing is for us to look at things. We look at things from Lego building blocks. There's some infrastructure that is built already. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. And if there's one thing I've learned traveling to Tallinn and being part of Estonia as a country in the last few months, is they have this mindset of let's not reinvent the wheel. If one wheel is working, let's roll with that wheel. And so for us, there are already infrastructures like Safaricom and mPesa who have built an amazing product that we believe we can piggyback on. And that's why we've integrated with mPesa to enable local people to buy and sell gold and invest in gold and use gold as a means of transaction within Africa and across the world. But most importantly, when we came into the market, one thing that I did advise the team is education will play a very key role for us. And so the first strategy for us is how do we educate people about preserving their wealth, about what inflation actually is? You'll be surprised. A lot of people do not actually, in the local market, understand how inflation reduces their wealth capability and their buying power. And so we have done a financial literacy program in MKU, where over 1,400 students were in attendance for almost 2 hours, listening to the team. And we learned a lot from them as well in terms of, I kept my money in my bank, and I'm not anti-bank yet, just to, because we're on a global stage. And now I have that 10,000 Kenyan shillings in my bank 5 years ago. And we made it very clear to them. If you have 10,000 Kenyan shillings in bank 5 years ago, according to the data, Trading View, Kenyan shillings have lost a minimum of 30% against US dollar on a global stage. Most times we don't see financial inclusion and exclusion from currency power. Oftentimes we see financial inclusion and exclusion from access to financial products. But oftentimes, if someone comes from Thailand and have €100 in their pocket into Kenya, they're big boys and big girls. They can afford to eat wherever they want it. But if I take 100 Kenyan shillings today into Thailand, I'll probably only buy a coffee. So on a global, to zoom in and zoom out on a global scale, in terms of whether the currency is non-convertible or convertible, whoever designed and defined it, a lot of people in Africa are still financially excluded. And education plays a very key role in making people realize how does inflation affect your buying power? How does your currency fare to the rest of the global currency? What are those things that you are doing to protect your own wealth? And that's been part of our key strategy at Aufort in the last 4 months that we've been in this market, educating people, building the trust, and taking feedback along the way as well to make sure that we listen to the market that we're serving.
Okay. Maybe just to add on what you're speaking about education and trust, maybe your last thoughts around how do we use technology to bridge the gap around financial education, especially for this young sort of generation?
Absolutely. I'm a big believer of tech-enabled businesses. But we also need to be very mindful of the African context. Because in the African context, there's a lot we can learn from Safaricom and mPesa. If Safaricom, when they came to market, has not gone to those rural women in those villages and embraced that community, maybe the story we'll be talking in terms of success today will have been different. Yeah. And so if we will expect those women to say, okay, we come into market and we enable you to use internet on your phone, there won't be M-Pesa. Yeah. But M-Pesa understands that people here have a cheap and paying phone, and so message and mobile-based solution is what they need. That is still tech-enabled, but that is more local content paired together with tech. And I think to me that the product that we've scaled and will continue to succeed in Africa and Kenya at large has to understand the cultural dynamics and the understanding of what tech means to the local market. Because what technology means in different cultural contexts is different. To Kenya, technology for us as far as mobile payment is concerned is a cheap and paying phone. I don't need an internet to receive money or to send money. But for tech-enabled payment in Europe, that probably be their bank card scheme, Visa and MasterCard. So it's understanding what tech actually means in the local context of the people that we're serving. And I think to us, we believe that technology is one aspect of it, but customizing that technology to cater for the local need also play a very key role in succeeding in that market. And that's something we take very seriously at Aufort.
Good. Yeah, thanks, Michael, for that.
Thank you.
That's very insightful. Over to you, Boriss. When selling some of these complex products to, people who've never done investments before, from where you sit, how do we use technology to bridge that gap on financial education?
I know. In our case, like in the previous answers, that education is number one. And I guess even if we look on our web or the app, and basically the first button is education or demo. So because these financial products, they include they carry a risk, and just to minimize the risk, it's always educational side. Just need to feel yourself comfortable, right? So don't follow just anyone's advices. Make your own research. This is what we can basically suggest for the beginners, right? So on all our web, on all our apps, the first button is always demo and education. So this is how we can bring them safely to that to that product.
Okay, good. I think over to you, Hesbon. How from your position, how has M-Pesa used technology to bridge that education gap so that users can easily understand, the products that they use and then scale that?
Yeah. So last year part of the regulation is only over 18s can access and use M-Pesa. So we did lobby, of course, with the government, and they gave us permission to create products that can serve the younger generation. So anyone who has 12 years and above can use your parent KYC and be able to have an mPesa wallet. So part of just leveraging technology to ensure that, of course, the younger generation understand responsible use of money is now we are doing gamification, basically giving challenges in a way, of course, that's enjoyable, understandable to the younger generation, that they can actually save money and there's an incentive to it. So that's partly, and then lastly, of course, part of the collaboration is, so we're working with Microsoft, of course, as part of the Big Tech to digitize skills for micro and medium SMEs, even including customers that can now be more financial wise. And I think lastly, I know time is up. So when you look at Hustler Fund, I think those who know Hustler Fund, this was a government initiative. In as much as, of course, it was a mass market product, what the President Merkel was trying to do is give loans to almost everyone, that's number one, and they are trying to promote a savings culture. So if you take a loan today, there's a mandatory amount, 5%, which is deducted and becomes a saving. So now we are 1 year old, and what actually happened is, for those who borrowed and saved, the president gave an order to double and triple their limits, which is now they're actually expanding their limit. And those who saved, the more they've saved, you give them a 50% interest earning. So part of that's actually, in a way it's a product, but it's actually trying to drive responsible lending and saving. Okay. And therefore, in general, of course, promoting the savings culture for Kenyans. Yeah.
Okay, good. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We hope you learned something around how we can use technology to bridge financial inclusion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.